That night, they pinned me like an animal. Fist to the gut, knee to the ribs, and then that bag appeared like magic. Never was. But in their eyes, I was...
I still wake up some nights tasting blood and gravel, the kind of metallic tang that lingers on your tongue long after the memory should have faded. I can feel that boot pressing into my ribs again, hear the low growl of a voice calling me boy, like it was still 1965 and nothing had changed. Back then, I was just a man trying to keep the lights on, feed 2 growing boys, and come home to my wife with enough left in me to smile. I didn't know one routine traffic stop could try to erase everything I'd built. If you've ever felt that same cold knot in your gut when blue lights flash behind you, even when you know you've done nothing wrong, then stay with me. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Makes an old man feel a little less alone out here on these empty roads. And if this hits close to home, hit that like button and subscribe. There are more stories where the little guy fights back, and I've got a few left to tell. My name is Marcus. I'm 68 now, living in a quiet little house just outside Memphis, the kind of place where the porch light stays on all night and the crickets are louder than the traffic. I retired from driving a long haul about 5 years ago, but the road still lives in me. It's in the way my hands automatically check the mirrors when I'm behind the wheel of my old pickup, the way I still keep a thermos of black coffee in the cup holder, even for a trip to the grocery store. I started driving trucks back in the late 70s, right after I got out of the Army. 2 tours in Vietnam, came home with a Purple Heart I never talk about, and a need for steady work that didn't involve looking over my shoulder every second. Trucking seemed perfect. Long stretches of highway, your own schedule, good money if you stayed safe and kept your logbook clean. I bought my first rig in '81, a beat-up Freightliner with more miles on it than sense, and I never looked back. Those early years were good ones. I'd leave Memphis before dawn, the city lights fading in the rear view, and head west or south depending on the load. Sometimes it was lumber out of Arkansas, sometimes auto parts from Detroit down to Houston, sometimes just pallets of whatever the warehouse needed moved. The cab smelled like diesel and old leather and the faint sweetness of Lena's peach cobbler wrapped in foil for the road. She'd pack me lunches every time. Fried chicken, collards, cornbread, a slice of that cobbler, and write little notes on the napkin. Drive safe, love. Come home to us. I kept every one of those napkins in a shoebox under the bed until the boys found them years later and teased me about being soft. They weren't wrong. The boys, Jamal and Trey, were little then, maybe 6 and 4, when I started the long hauls. They'd stand on the porch in their pajamas, waving until my taillights disappeared around the bend. Lena would hold them close, one on each hip, and I'd watch them in the mirror until they were just specks. That sight kept me going through the long nights. I'd talk to them on the CB sometimes when I got close to home, pretending I was still on the road. "Breaker, breaker, this is Big M coming in hot. Anybody got ears on?" They'd giggle and grab the mic, yelling, "Daddy's home," like it was the biggest news in the world. Those moments made the loneliness bearable. The road could be empty and mean, but knowing I had them waiting made it feel like purpose. I was proud of the work. I kept my truck spotless, washed the chrome every Sunday, waxed the hood, made sure the tires were rotated on schedule. My logbook was perfect. I never fudged hours, never pushed past my limit. Other drivers noticed. On the CB, they'd call me Clean Marcus or Preacher because I didn't curse much, and I'd always say 10-4 good buddy, like an old school operator. There were good folks out there, white drivers mostly, but a few black ones too. Big Ray was one of them. Big voice, bigger laugh, hauled steel out of Birmingham. He'd come on the radio late at night. "Clean Marcus, you running that stretch through Jasper tonight?" I'd say yeah, and he'd drop his voice low. "Watch yourself, brother. Some of those county boys down there got a habit of seeing things that ain't there." I'd laugh it off, tell him I was good, but his words stuck like grit in my teeth. The first time it really hit me wasn't dramatic. It was 1987, I think, somewhere outside Tuscaloosa. I'd just dropped a load of roofing shingles and was heading back empty. Blue lights popped up in my mirror around midnight. I pulled over smooth, hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel, dome light on, window down before the officer even got close. Standard procedure. Daddy taught me that when I was 16 and got my first car. Hands visible, voice low, yes sir, no sir. I knew the drill. The cop was young, maybe 25, buzz cut, flashlight right in my eyes. License and registration. I handed them over slow. He looked at the papers like they might bite him, then asked where I was coming from, where I was going, what was in the trailer. I told him empty, just dropped in Birmingham. He walked around the truck, tapping the tires with his boot, shining the light under the chassis like he expected to find gold. Then he came back. Step out of the vehicle. My heart kicked up, but I did it. He patted me down, hands lingering on my pockets, my waist, rougher than it needed to be. You got anything on you I should know about? No, sir. He asked to search the cab. I said I didn't consent. Polite as I could, he smiled, thin and cold. Suit yourself, but I smell something funny. Probable cause. He climbed in anyway, rummaged through my duffel, flipped the mattress in the sleeper, even opened my lunch cooler and sniffed the cobbler like it was contraband. Found nothing, of course. He climbed down, handed me back my papers. Drive careful, boy, and get that taillight fixed. It wasn't broken. I'd checked it myself that morning, but I nodded. Yes, sir. I sat in the cab for a long minute after he left, hands shaking on the wheel. Not from fear exactly, more like anger mixed with something heavier, something tired. I drove another 20 miles before I pulled into a rest area, cut the engine, and just sat there in the dark. Lena was asleep when I called from a payphone. I didn't tell her the whole thing, just said the run went long, but I couldn't shake it. That word, boy, hung in the air like smoke. I'd heard it before plenty of times, but never quite like that. Never with that flashlight in my face and my livelihood on the line. After that, it happened more often. Not every run, but enough to notice a pattern. Rural counties in Alabama and Mississippi mostly. A weaving stop when I was driving straight as an arrow. A random check that turned into a 20-minute search. One time, in '92, outside Selma, they had me stand spread eagle against the trailer while they went through every compartment. Found a half-eaten sandwich and my Bible, nothing else. The older cop laughed. You pray a lot, huh? I said, yes, sir, I do. He tossed the Bible back like it was trash. Maybe pray you don't get stopped again. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying it, wondering what I'd done different, what I could have said to make it end quicker. Nothing came to mind. I just drove on. Lena noticed I was quieter after those stops. She'd rub my shoulders when I got home, ask if everything was okay. I'd tell her the road was rough, that's all. I didn't want her worrying. The boys were getting older, starting to ask questions. Jamal wanted to know why I always checked the mirrors so much. I told him it was habit, part of being a good driver. Trey asked why some police cars made me grip the wheel tighter. I said they were just doing their job. Lies, but gentle ones. I wasn't ready to put that weight on them yet. By the early 2000s, the routes were second nature. I'd upgraded to a newer Kenworth, nicer sleeper, satellite radio. The boys were teenagers. Lena had gone back to school part-time. Life felt steady, but the stops kept coming. Little cuts that added up. I started avoiding certain stretches after dark when I could. Big Ray's warnings echoed louder now. He'd retired by then, moved to Atlanta, but we still talked sometimes. You still running those back roads? He'd ask. I'd say, yeah, money's good. He'd just sigh. Be careful, Clean. Some things don't change. One night in 2004, I was 51, still strong, still thinking I could outlast whatever came. I had a tight deadline. Load of industrial parts out of Memphis to Mobile had to be there by morning or the contract was gone. I left late, around 8, figuring I'd push through. The interstate was clear, but I knew I'd have to cut through a couple rural counties to shave time. I'd done it before, no big deal. Around 2 in the morning, my eyes were heavy, bladder full. I saw a shell station up ahead, bright lights cutting through the dark like a promise. I signaled, eased off the highway, pulled into the lot. The place was empty except for a couple pumps and a tired-looking clerk inside. I killed the engine, set the brake, climbed down. The air was thick, humid, the kind that sticks to your skin the second you step out. Cicadas screaming in the pines, frogs croaking somewhere close. I stretched my back, felt the pop in my spine, and walked to the pump. I slotted the nozzle in, started filling, leaned against the fender of the trailer. The tank clicked slow, steady. I took a sip from my water bottle, warm from sitting in the cab all day, looked out at the road, black as ink, no cars coming either way, just me and the night. Then I saw them. Blue and red lights, far off but closing fast. My stomach dropped the way it always did. I told myself it was probably nothing, just a patrol car heading somewhere else. But the lights kept coming, slowed, turned into the station lot. The cruiser rolled up slow, stopped about 20 feet away. 2 doors opened, footsteps on gravel. I kept my hands visible, eyes on the pump numbers ticking up, heart beating steady but loud in my ears. The air felt heavier now, like something was about to shift. I took one last breath, set the nozzle back in its cradle, and turned to face them. The flashlight beam hit me square in the face, blinding like a sudden sun in the dead of night. I squinted, raising one hand just enough to shield my eyes, but not so much it looked like a threat. "Evening, officers," I said, voice even, like I'd practiced 1,000 times. The younger one stepped forward first, boots crunching gravel underfoot. He was built like a linebacker, broad shoulders, straining his uniform, face smooth but eyes hard. The older one hung back a bit, leaning against the cruiser door, arms crossed, chewing on something, gum or tobacco I couldn't tell. His gut pushed at his belt, and his stare felt like it was peeling me apart layer by layer. "License and registration," the young one barked. Not a question, more like an order from a drill sergeant. I nodded, slow and deliberate, reached into my pocket for my wallet, hands visible the whole time, pulled out the CDL, the truck papers from the glove box folder I'd grabbed quick from the cab, handed them over without a word. He snatched them, flipped through like he was hunting for a lie. The pump behind me hummed, the smell of gasoline sharp in the humid air, mixing with the faint rot of swamp nearby. My mind raced ahead. Get through this, back on the road, home by dawn if I pushed it. "Where you headed?" the older one asked, voice gravelly, like he'd smoked a pack that day. He spat to the side, a dark glob hitting the concrete near my boot. I kept my feet planted. "Mobile, sir, dropping parts at the port." He nodded, but it wasn't agreement. The young one handed back the papers after what felt like forever. "Step out further, away from the truck." I was already out, but I moved a couple of feet, back to the trailer side. Heart thumping now, not panic yet, just that familiar drumbeat reminding me to breathe. They circled the rig like wolves sniffing a fresh kill. The young one tapped the mud flaps, shone his light into the wheel wells. "You been drinking?" "No, sir." "Drugs?" "No, sir." The older one climbed up to the cab door, yanked it open without asking. "Hey, I don't consent to a search," I said, words coming out firmer than I felt. He paused, looked down at me with a smirk that twisted his face. "You nervous, driver? Sweating a lot for a cool night." It wasn't cool, the air was thick as soup, but I wiped my forehead anyway. "Just tired, officer, long run." The young one got closer, too close, his breath hot on my neck. "We get a lot of runners through here, out-of-state plates like yours, hauling more than parts maybe." I shook my head. "Just what's on the manifest. Appliances, sealed crates." He laughed, short and mean. Manifests lie. People lie. Then his hands were on me, patting down my arms, my sides, rough like he was checking for weapons, but really just pushing boundaries. Fingers dug into my pockets, pulled out my flip phone, tossed it on the hood of their car. What's this? Recording us? No, sir, just a phone. But inside, my gut twisted. I'd grabbed it from the cab earlier, habit from hearing stories on the CB about bad stops. It was old, no fancy apps, but the voice recorder was on, buried in my shirt pocket now, hidden under the collar. They didn't find anything on me, but that didn't stop them. The older one came down from the cab, holding my thermos like a trophy. Smells funny in there, like weed maybe. It was coffee, black and stale from hours ago. That's not right, I said, voice steady but edges fraying. I don't touch that stuff. He set the thermos down hard, liquid sloshing out. You calling me a liar? The young one stepped in, chest puffed. We got probable cause now. Odor. Step back. I did, but my mind flashed to Jamal and Trey, their faces in the morning light, waiting for me to pull in. What if I didn't? Lena's voice on the phone, soft and worried. I couldn't let this spiral. Open the trailer, the older one ordered. I hesitated. I need a warrant for that. His eyes narrowed, face reddening under the station lights. Boy, you think you're a lawyer now? In this county, we say jump. You ask how high. There it was again, that word slicing through the night like a dull knife. Boy. At 51, with calluses from 30 years on the wheel, kids grown halfway, and I was boy. Heat rose in my chest. Not fear anymore, something sharper. But I swallowed it. Respectfully, sir, I know my rights. The young one grabbed my arm, twisted it back. Resisting. That's what this is. Pain shot up my shoulder, but I didn't pull away. They shoved me against the trailer, cold metal biting into my cheek. The older one cuffed my hands behind my back, tight, the metal digging into wrists. You just made this worse. I felt the recorder pressing against my chest, hoped it was catching every word. The young one climbed into the trailer, flashlight bobbing. Sounds of crates shifting, paper ripping. Got something, he yelled. My blood went cold. He jumped down, holding a small plastic bag, white powder inside, sealed tight. Look at this, under the front pallet. That wasn't mine. I'd loaded the truck myself, checked every seal. You planted that? I said, voice low but clear. That's not from my load. The older one laughed, deep and ugly. Hear that? Accusing officers. Add that to the list. He got in my face, breath sour. You got two choices. Empty your pockets, whatever cash you hauling, and we forget this. Or we book you for possession, intent to distribute. Weekend in county jail, mugshot for the wife to frame. I thought of Lena's face if she saw that. The boys hearing whispers at school. My job gone. Companies didn't hire drivers with records, even false ones. I got maybe 200 in my wallet, I said, hating the words. For fuel and food. The young one smirked. That all, check 'em again. They uncuffed one hand, made me pull out the wallet, counted the bills slow, like it was their money. Not enough, the older one said. Truckers like you always got more. Safe in the cab? I shook my head. Nothing else. That's when the shove came, hard, into the side of the truck. My head cracked against the panel, stars exploding behind my eyes. Lying now? The young one swung a fist into my gut, air whooshing out. I doubled over, coughing, resisting arrest. Another blow, this one to the ribs, crack like dry wood snapping. Pain bloomed hot, spreading like fire. I gasped, knees buckling, but they held me up. Flashbacks hit me then, unbidden, like road signs whipping by at 80. Me as a kid in Memphis, 9 years old, watching Daddy get pulled over on Beale Street. Hands on the dash, yes sir, no sir, walking away with a warning, but eyes haunted. Some battles you don't fight, son, he'd said later, voice tired. Then Vietnam, humping through jungle, Bullets zipping, brothers in arms, black and white, but back home, the uniform meant nothing. Stopped at a diner in Georgia on leave, colored entrance sign still up in '69. Served last, food cold. I'd fought for this country, bled for it, and still, here I was, face pressed to metal, tasting blood from a split lip where the ring on the young one's hand had caught me. Why? I whispered, more to myself. The older one leaned in. Because we can. Now where's the rest? I didn't answer. Rage bubbled up, overriding the pain. This ain't right. You know it. That earned me a knee to the thigh, leg going numb. I slumped, breath ragged. They dragged me toward the cruiser, feet scraping gravel. You're done, driver. Trafficking charge. Kiss your license goodbye. The recorder. God, let it be working. Let someone hear this later. They threw me in the back seat, door slamming like a coffin lid, cuffs bit deeper as I shifted, trying to breathe through the fire in my side. The engine roared to life, tires crunching as we pulled out. I twisted, looked back through the wire mesh. The Shell station lights receded, a glow fading into black. Blood trickled down my chin, warm and sticky. My mind screamed, Lena, the boys, the empty road ahead without me. Everything narrowing to that one thought. This couldn't be the end, but damn if it didn't feel like it. The cruiser accelerated, highway swallowing us whole, and I closed my eyes against the blur, pain throbbing with every bump. The station house loomed up out of the darkness like a squat beast, its yellow light spilling onto cracked asphalt where weeds pushed through like defiant fingers. The cruiser jerked to a stop in the back lot, engine ticking down as the doors popped open. Rough hands yanked me out, cuffs pulling my shoulders into an unnatural twist, every jolt sending fresh waves through my cracked rib. I stumbled, bit back a groan, tasted more copper on my tongue. The younger officer gripped my elbow hard enough to bruise, steering me toward a metal door scarred with dents and faded paint. Move it, he muttered, shoving me forward. Inside, the air hit like a slap. Stale sweat, bleach, and something metallic underneath, like old fear baked into the walls. They processed me quick and mean, no frills. Fingerprints, smudged on a cold glass scanner, mugshot against a height chart that made me feel small, flash popping in my eyes like judgment. The strip search came next, in a room with flickering fluorescents and a drain in the floor that whispered of worse things. Clothes off, the jailer barked, a burly white guy with a mustache like a broom and eyes that didn't meet mine. I peeled off layers slow, pain making my fingers fumble, standing there exposed while he poked through pockets and seams. Taunts floated in like smoke. What's this, tough guy? Thought you were clean. Laughter from the hall, low and echoing. I stared at the tile, counting cracks to keep from shattering. Naked under those lights, I wasn't Marcus anymore. Not the father, not the veteran, not the man who'd crossed 1,000,000 miles without a ticket. Just another body in the machine. They tossed me orange scrubs that smelled of other men's despair, led me down a corridor lined with cells where shadows shifted and murmurs rose like ghosts. My cell was a concrete box, 8 by 10, bunk with a thin mattress stained in ways I didn't want to think about. Toilet in the corner like an accusation. The door clanged shut, lock tumbling with finality. I sank onto the bunk, ribs screaming, curled up fetal to ease the ache. Hours blurred, maybe 2, maybe 4 before the first call came. A guard slid a phone through the slot. 5 minutes. Family only. Lena's voice cracked the line like dawn light. Marcus, oh God, what happened? I tried to sound strong, but my words came out ragged. Bad stop, baby. They set me up. Powder in the truck, not mine. Her sob hit me harder than any fist. The boys are scared. Jamal won't stop asking, when are you coming home? Soon, I lied. Bail hearing tomorrow, maybe. Hang tight. But tomorrow stretched into nothing. The judge, a stern woman with glasses perched on her nose like a bird of prey, glanced at my file, heard the charges: possession with intent, resisting arrest. Flight risk, she said, voice flat as pavement. Bail denied. Back to the cell. Days melting into a gray haze. Meals slid under the door on trays. Grits like paste, bread tough as leather, mystery meat that turned my stomach. Inmates yelled through vents, stories swapping like currency. They got me for nothing too, man. But their eyes slid away when I mentioned the setup, like bad luck was contagious. Nights were worst. Pain keeping sleep at bay. Mind replaying the station lights, the bag appearing like magic. Why me? Was it the plates? The route? Or just the color of my skin? A target painted on since birth. Whispers from guards filtered in, casual cruelty. Another one thinks he's special. Laughter outside the door. I pressed my forehead to the cool wall, questioning everything. God, where were you that night? I'd prayed in foxholes overseas, under fire, and come through. But here, in this cage, faith felt thin as the blanket they gave me. Self-doubt crept in like damp. Should have paid them off, kept my mouth shut, played the game, but deeper. Anger simmered, a slow boil at the system that let this happen, that turned badges into weapons. How many others sat in cells like this, stories untold? I traced names, scratched into the bunk frame, initials, dates, pleas, and wondered if mine would join them. Finally, after 3 endless days, bail came through. Lena scraped it together, savings drained, a loan from her sister we couldn't afford. She picked me up at the gate, face pale under the sodium lamps, eyes red-rimmed. We didn't speak much on the drive home. Her hand on mine said enough. The boys waited on the porch, Jamal tall and lanky now at 17, Trey 15 and trying to look tough. They hugged me careful, like I might break. "Dad, you okay?" Trey asked, voice cracking. I nodded, forced a smile. "Just a mix-up, it'll sort." But inside, the weight pressed heavier. The company called that afternoon. Boss's voice clipped over the line. "Sorry, Marcus. With the charges pending, we can't keep you on. Insurance won't cover it. 30 years loyal, clean record, gone in a blink." "Understand," I said, but I didn't. How could I? Bills piled up like unread mail on the kitchen table. Mortgage notice came first, red ink screaming overdue. Lena took extra shifts at the hospital, scrubbing floors instead of nursing like she dreamed. I applied for local gigs, warehouse loading, delivery vans, but whispers followed. "Heard about that trucker. Busted with drugs." Friends from church nodded polite but kept distance, invitations drying up. Even Big Ray, when I called, sounded hesitant. "Tough break, brother. Hang in there." But his voice carried pity, and that stung worse than bruises. Nights I sat in the garage, staring at my old toolbox, nursing a bottle of cheap whiskey that burned going down but numbed the edges. Mirrors became enemies. I avoided them, hating the hollow eyes staring back, the purple blooms fading slow on my side. Who was this man? Broken, that's who. Useless. Guilt gnawed constant. Lena's tired smiles, the boys' worried glances over dinner, silent accusations. I should have fought harder, I'd think, replaying the shove, the cuffs, or no. Should have folded quicker, handed over more cash. The system wasn't built for fights. It was rigged to crush. Anger turned inward, then outward, at the cops, at the judge, at a world that saw me as threat first, human second. Faith frayed further. Sunday services felt hollow, prayers bouncing off ceilings. "Why us, Lord?" I'd whisper in the dark, Lena asleep beside me, her breathing the only anchor. Foreclosure papers arrived like a death sentence, taped to the door one rainy afternoon. We had 30 days. I crumpled it, threw it in the trash, but it haunted like a shadow. Then a spark, small, flickering. Trey came to me one evening, laptop open, face lit blue. Dad, I uploaded the audio from your phone. I'd forgotten the recorder in the chaos, handed the phone to him to charge. He'd listened, rage in his young eyes, posted it anonymous on some forum, early YouTube clip buried in comments. "It's getting views," he said, tentative. I listened, my voice tinny, the officer's threats clear as day. "Planting evidence," one commenter wrote. Classic setup. Shares trickled in, black forums lighting up. Another brother done wrong. A GoFundMe popped up. Strangers chipping in 20s, 50s. "For the family," notes read, "we've been there." More came. Emails from truckers I'd never met. "Happened to me in Texas, 98, one wrote. "Fought it, one small. Hang on." Stories poured like rain. Stops turned sour. Lives upended. A lawyer from the NAACP reached out. "Pro bono," he said. "Your tape's gold. We'll challenge the charges." Hope stirred, fragile as new leaves. Lena squeezed my hand. "See? Not alone." The video went semi-viral in pockets. Thousands of views in community groups, shares on budding social sites. Support arrived in waves. Segment 21. Bosung Dadam Bao Kong Tu Noi Dung. A church fund covered a mortgage payment. Anonymous cards with encouragement. For the first time in weeks, I looked in the mirror without flinching. The bruises were yellowing, eyes less dead. Anger shifted. Not gone, but channeled. Maybe this wasn't just my fight. Maybe it was ours. I started talking more. To Lena about the doubts. To the boys about the real world. Raw and unfiltered. Segment 22. Jamal researched cases online. Trey helped with the lawyer calls. The house felt less like a tomb. One night, scrolling comments under the clip, a message hit hard. "Your story saved me from quitting. Keep driving, even if it's slow." I closed the laptop, stepped outside. Stars pricked the sky, crisp and distant. The pain in my rib had dulled to an ache, a reminder not to forget. Tomorrow, first meeting with the attorney. For Gio, I breathed deep, the night air cool on my skin, carrying a whisper of possibility. That first meeting with the attorney unfolded in a cramped office downtown, the kind of place where fluorescent bulbs hummed like distant traffic and stacks of files teetered on every surface, threatening avalanche. Mr. Harlan, tall, bespectacled, with a handshake firm as oak, listened without interruption as I laid it out, voice steadier than I'd expected. The audio played through his computer speakers, tinny echoes of threats and blows filling the room like unwelcome guests. He leaned back, fingers steepled, and said words that stuck. "This isn't just your case, Marcus. It's a crack in the dam. We'll widen it." Outside, as I walked to the bus stop, truck impounded still, no wheels of my own. The city buzzed with midday energy, horns and chatter blending into a rhythm that felt almost hopeful. For the first time in weeks, the ache in my side seemed less a wound and more a badge, proof I'd endured. The legal grind started slow, a marathon, not a sprint. Harlan filed motions, gathered affidavits, chased down the gas station clerk who'd peeked out that night, wide-eyed but silent until subpoenaed. "Saw them rough you up," he testified in deposition, voice quavering. Heard the slurs, too. The audio became our linchpin. Experts confirmed no tampering. Timestamps matching dispatch logs. But the county pushed back hard. Lawyers in sharp suits painting me as unreliable. A drifter with a grudge. Court dates piled up like unread letters. Preliminary hearings in stuffy rooms where judges frowned over dockets. Continuances granted for further review. Months turned to seasons. fall leaves crunching underfoot as I paced our porch, winter frosting the windows while Lena brewed endless pots of tea to warm the chill in my bones. Family became the glue holding me together. Lena's strength shone quiet but fierce. She'd come home from shifts bone-weary, yet still find energy to review case notes with me, her nurse's eye spotting inconsistencies in medical reports from my injuries. See here? They downplayed the rib fracture. We'll use that. The boys stepped up in ways that swelled my chest with pride mixed with regret. They shouldn't have had to. Jamal, the thinker, dove into law books from the library, quoting precedents over dinner like a mini professor. Fruit of the poisonous tree, Dad. That search was illegal from the jump. Trey, more hands-on, mowed lawns after school to chip in on bills, his silence speaking volumes. Evenings, we'd gather in the living room, TV muted, sharing laughs over old photo albums, me in uniform, boys as toddlers on my shoulders. Those moments rebuilt what the stop had cracked, brick by emotional brick. Work trickled back in fragments. No long-haul gigs, too risky with charges pending, but a buddy from church hooked me up with local deliveries for a hardware store. Short runs in a battered van, hauling nails and lumber around Memphis suburbs. Pay was half what I'd made. Hours erratic, but it kept the lights on. First day back behind a wheel, even that small one felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The van's engine purred different from my old rig's roar, but the road unspooled familiar. Curves and stops a meditation. Customers nodded polite, some recognizing me from whispers. Ain't you the one from that video? I'd shrug, say, just doing my job now. But inside, it fueled a quiet resolve. No more hiding. This was survival, pure and gritty. As the case dragged into its second year, pressure built from unexpected corners. The audio clip, now with 500,000 views across platforms, sparked protests. Small at first, signs waving outside the county courthouse. Justice for Marcus. Media picked it up, local news segments framing it as another tale of profiling, national blogs dissecting the audio like evidence in a thriller. Harlan leveraged it masterfully, filing for discovery that unearthed department emails, casual mentions of quota stops, and easy marks. The Internal Affairs Review kicked off amid the noise, a panel of stern faces grilling the officers in closed sessions. Leaks trickled out, the younger one cracking under questions, admitting maybe things got heated. No full confession, but enough to erode their story. Charges dropped on a crisp spring morning, 2 years and change after the night. Harlan called it dawn. It's over. Dismissed with prejudice. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling, untouched, as relief washed in waves, first numb, then tidal. Lena cried happy tears. The boys whooped like kids at a ball game. But victory tasted bittersweet. No apology from the badge. Just a quiet settlement check that covered legal fees and a bit more, enough to catch up on the house, buy a used pickup. The department shuffled quietly. The younger officer demoted to desk duty, whispers of early retirement. The older one outright fired, badge stripped amid policy violations. New rules rolled out. Body cams mandatory, training on bias. Small wins, but in a system built on inertia, they felt like shifts in the Earth's plates. Rebuilding took root gradual, like grass pushing through concrete. I landed a steady gig with a local freight outfit, regional hauls, home most nights. The cab of the new truck smelled of fresh vinyl, dashboard lit with gauges I'd missed like old friends. First run out, crossing state lines without that knot in my gut. I pulled over at a rest stop just to savor it. Whined through pines, coffee steaming, simple freedoms amplified. Family bloomed anew. Jamal headed to community college on a partial scholarship, studying criminal justice with fire in his eyes. Trey joined a youth group advocating for reform, his voice finding power in rallies. Lena and I renewed vows in a backyard ceremony, simple rings exchanged under string lights, promising to weather whatever came next. Years blurred forward, 5, then 10, time's current carrying us along. Grandkids arrived, tiny bundles that filled the house with squeals and sticky fingers. I'd bounce them on my knee, telling sanitized tales of the road. Grandpa drove big trucks, saw the whole country. Never the dark parts, not yet. But one evening, over barbecue at a family cookout, news filtered in casual. Big Ray on the phone, voice crackling with age. Heard about that old sergeant, the one from your stop. Details unfolded. Divorce hit him hard after the firing. Alimony draining what little he had. Drinking escalated. Bar fights landing him in county lockup. Ironic twist. Lost his house to foreclosure. Ended up in a trailer park. Health failing from years of excess. No dramatic downfall. Just a slow unraveling. Threads pulled by his own hands. I didn't cheer, didn't fist pump. Sitting there, smoke from the grill curling skyward, a sadness settled instead. Heavy as fog on a dawn highway. He'd been a man once, maybe broken by his own pains, lashing out because the world let him. Hurt cycles, I murmured to Lena later, her head on my shoulder. But it don't have to. No glee in his misery. Just recognition. That actions echo, ripples spreading far. It closed a chapter, not with vengeance, but quiet acknowledgement. The road evens out eventually, for better or worse. These days, at 68, I drive those same stretches occasional, pickup humming along familiar blacktop. The Shell station's still there, remodeled, bright and welcoming, no shadows lurking. Blue lights in the mirror don't spike my pulse like before. Policies changed. Awareness spread. The scar on my rib twinges in rain, a weather vane of memory, but it reminds me of resilience, not defeat. Life's highway twists unpredictable, potholes waiting, but you keep rolling. Adjust the mirrors, check the brakes, trust the journey. If you're carrying scars like mine, know this. Dawn comes after the longest night. Share your miles in the comments. Has a wrong turn taught you strength? Like if it resonates, subscribe for more truths from the road. Y'all keep me going, one story at a time.